Hey everybody, welcome back to Random Conversations. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Noel, aka The Talent.
And we're here with a new set of topics that we want to talk about. So you recently shared that you watched Shaq on the Pivot podcast talking about male vulnerability and how he doesn't really like to show emotions. So I want to know, from a male standpoint, did you agree with him?
I did not. A lot of males think that emotions is weakness and showing them is weakness. I think that emotions, when controlled, can be a strength and it's a tool to be used. I think a man can't fully be the best version of themselves until they completely master themselves. And part of mastering yourself is mastering your emotions. Now, a lot of guys get it confused that by suppressing your emotions, you're controlling it. You're not controlling it. You're not even confronting it. You're just pushing it down for it to explode in a venue that's least advantageous to you, or on someone who doesn't deserve to be exploded on, right? But I think emotions are a powerful thing. We are supposed to feel them. It helps us to be empathetic and sympathetic to other people's plights. It helps us to better understand the world around us and the people around us. I never understood. I personally grew up in a household with a very quote unquote macho dad. I never saw him cry. To this day, I've never seen my father cry. And I could count on maybe two hands how many times we've said "I love you," and I'm 37, right? So it doesn't feel natural saying it to him, even though I love him very much, and I know he loves me very much. It's just that I don't have that comfortability with saying it with him because we rarely share those words with each other.
Did you break the cycle with your kids?
Yeah, that's one thing that I definitely changed. So every time I see my sons, I tell them I love them. When I put my sons to sleep, I give them a kiss and I tell them I love them. My daughter, same thing. I'm constantly telling my children that I love them. I want them to be able to express that emotion with me, and I allow my sons to express their feelings too. So whenever they're feeling something, I kind of ask them like, "What's going on, buddy?" and try to have them open up to me. Because a lot of the times, me growing up, I felt like no one was listening, so I kind of bottled things up and pushed things down, and it was to my detriment because it got me into a lot of trouble. I got into a lot of fights because I was dealing with a lot of stuff that I never confronted, right? So I didn't want my kids to kind of grow up like that. I wanted them to be able to feel their emotions and let them know that their emotions are valid. And to be able to vocalize that. But at the same token, I don't believe that a man should run around crying, every 10 seconds either.
Well, no.
There's a time and place to let your emotions out and to feel them, right?
You have to regulate your emotions.
Right.
You have to know when to show them and when to withhold. But I do like male vulnerability because what's the point of suppressing your feelings? Women do it all the time. We share, we cry, we vent. So if I were to have a partner that held all that stuff in, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
And that's one thing that I always admired about women, especially my wife, because I would see her go through like the full gambit of emotions when dealing with any particular thing. And she would cry, she would let it out, and then she's okay. Like maybe like an hour or two later, she's fine because she dealt with it. She felt it. She allowed it to move through her, and she was able to, recover from it. Whereas men, like I was watching a Bill Burr stand up on Hulu, and he was basically saying that men really allowed to express only two emotions, which is like extreme anger and happiness, right? But men, we're humans and we feel the full gambit of emotions, from sadness to happiness to confusion, all of that stuff, right? We feel it all. And I feel like we do ourselves a disservice when we only allow ourselves to feel happiness and anger.
So sometimes if you gotta cry in the shower, just cry in the shower.
Yeah, nobody's around. Nobody's seeing you, right?
And it's also good to cry in front of people so they understand what you're dealing with.
I don't know about that.
No, you got to. You got to.
Well, you see, like,
you got to express yourself so we know how to handle you. Because it's like you're walking on eggshells. Something's wrong with you. You're not saying what's wrong with you, and you feel like everything you do is gonna, piss the other person off. You gotta be vulnerable. You gotta tell people what you're feeling.
And one thing that,
because it's not only for you, it's for the people around you as well.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I noticed, a lot of things said about being a man is that men do the tough thing, right? But to me, it's not particularly tough to suppress your emotions, right? To me, it's tougher to feel your emotions and deal with them, right? To feel sadness and deal with it, right? Because the default for most of us is to push it down. So it's easy to push it down. It's easy to just ignore it and to keep moving on, keep trucking, right? It's hard for us to actually sit in the emotion that we're feeling that's not happiness or anger, and let it move through us and really kind of take account of like what's happening with us, within us and whatnot.
Who do you blame for all men being, well, not all, but some men being like that? Do you blame society norms? Men shouldn't cry?
It's definitely society norms, because I perpetuated it for a while too. Like when my son would start crying, I'll be like, yo, man up. I'm like, why you crying? I would say this all the time. I'm like, why you crying like a little girl, right? Or I'll compare him to his sister. I'll be like, you crying like your sister. Like, why you crying, right? And it's just like default. It's like built into me to respond that way.
A double standard.
And you're just creating emotionally stunted people by doing that, right? People need to vent. They need to get things off their chest. They need to feel these emotions. And it's not an embarrassing thing. You shouldn't be embarrassed by the way that you feel, right? And that was another thing that Shaq was stating. Shaq was stating that he would never show his emotions to his woman. And I didn't understand that either, because I feel that one of the great things about being in a relationship, especially say if it's a marriage, is that you're with somebody who you should be able to trust 100%, right? So when you're expressing how you feel to this person, you're expressing it to someone who is not going to share it with anyone else, and
help you through it,
right? And has your best interests at heart and wants to help you through it, right? Life is too hard to go through life not being able to unload the baggage, right? And vice versa, we play that role a lot for our women. We allow them to unpack their day, unload on us, and then, we try to fix it. Sometimes we get in trouble for trying to fix it because all they want us to do is to listen and shut up, right? But it's in our nature to try to.
You got to be on her side.
Yeah, it's in our nature to try to fix things, but they're there and they're ready, willing, and able to help you, right? A good woman will ask you all the time. They'll notice when something's off with you, and they'll ask,
And it affects their mood too.
Right. They want to help you. So let them. It's okay to be vulnerable, right? And like I said, they say men do the hard things, but the hard thing is being vulnerable, and they prefer not to do it because it's hard, right? Because there's that trust barrier there. But when you're truly with a woman, I think that part of that relationship is being vulnerable with one another. Right? You can't truly be with a woman and say that is somebody who you hold in such high esteem if you don't trust them with everything, right? And I remember Shaq said another reason why he doesn't share his emotions with women. This was on another podcast. This wasn't on the Pivot, but he was like, I think he said something about them throwing it in his face, or they'll use it against you or whatever.
Well, that's why you were crying like a little bitch.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, you can't be afraid. You can't live your life worried about stuff like that, right? You're with somebody, you start to get a sense for who they are. You start to build trust for them. You share stuff with them. Now, if they go ahead and violate that trust, then you got to act accordingly, right?
That's not the person for you.
Right, exactly. The person for you would never do that, right? So you have to kind of, you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. Sometimes that may happen, right? But it's not the end of the world.
But I do think that is being broken, like men feeling like they can't be vulnerable anymore. I feel like the norms are becoming abnormal, because a lot of men are coming out. They're crying more. They're telling you their feelings more. So I do feel like there's a shift in power in terms of men showing their emotions. And I think it's just for the betterment of society and the betterment of people's relationships. Couples can vent with each other more than just suppressing it. So I do feel like there's an upward trend, and I kind of like where it's going.
So you know what? When I think about this conversation, and old heads watching this might remember what I'm talking about, but the younger kids might have to research this. But there was there was a scene in Rocky 4, right? Where was it? No, Rocky 3.
Yeah,
right?
No worse.
Where he's fighting Clubber Lang, right? Clubber Lang is the main villain, and he's training with Apollo for the rematch, right? Because he lost. Clubber Lang knocked him out, right? So he's like going through the motions. He's half-assing his training, and Apollo doesn't know what the hell's going on with him. And so his wife comes up to him, and she's like, "Yo, what's the problem?" Right? And he was like, "I don't want to lose what I got. You know what I'm saying? We have a good life, blah, blah, blah." She was like, "That's not it. Like, what's the problem?" And he was like saying a whole bunch of million excuses. And then he was like, "You want to break me down?" He's like, "I'm afraid," right? And it was uncomfortable for him to say to his woman that, you know, he was afraid of someone, right? He was afraid of something, like, right? Yeah, he thought that, you know, she would look at him like he's less than, right? But she returned his vulnerability with love, and she basically was saying that, you know, it's okay to be afraid. You know, you're a man, and that's a normal emotion, right? And basically just saying she knew that he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he never accepted the challenge, right? So when I think about that conversation with women and men sharing their emotions with women, I always look to that, and I'm like, you know, that's a perfect example of how a true loving relationship will work. You know, you express your vulnerabilities to your woman, and then she responds in kind and strengthens you with her words, right? And lets you know that no matter what, she's still behind you 100%, right? And then he went on to beat Clubber, right? So, you know, take from that what you will, but I think that's a clear sign of a healthy relationship when emotions are shared not only from the woman's side but the man's side as well.
Yep. Women really appreciate that when a male is vulnerable with her. They really do. So it kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about. I read somewhere that 45% of Gen Z women want to get married. They want
to get married?
Well, yeah, 45% of Gen Z women want to get married. The rest don't.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So 55% of them don't want to get married.
Over 50% of them don't want to get married, and I'm like, that's weird. It's a drop from millennial women, which is 73. So over half of millennial women want to get married. So I'm like, what's the drastic drop about? So I was doing a little bit of research, and a lot of Gen Z women are career focused. They're about their personal growth. They don't want to be attached to anybody. And, you know, marriage is a contract. They don't want to be contracted to someone. And then when you sever the contract, there's a lot of things that take play in it, like divorce and going to court and fighting for assets and land and things of that nature. They don't want to deal with that. So I found it quite interesting that this Gen Z is just very different. And, yeah, I just found it interesting that they don't want to get married. They don't want the tie downs to having any type of companionship. So how do you feel about that?
I think that's a mistake, because I feel like life is tough, and it's meant to be lived in pairs, right? No matter how you live in your life, gay, straight, whatever, right? Life is meant to be lived in pairs. Hardships are meant to be shared.
But you got to think, they probably look at previous experiences. They look at the precedents. A lot of, say, if people in their family or their friend groups, like a lot of their relationships don't last, they're like, so why the hell I got to deal with that? I'd rather just be by myself and focus on getting my money.
Right, but if that's how you look at life, then you should look at life like that in totality. So,
and it looks like they are.
No, but that same woman could look at her friends, and okay, they're working at Walmart, or they're working as bank tellers or whatever, and then she goes on to become a nurse or an NP or a doctor or a CEO, right? Why didn't she look at her friends and say, I have all these examples of women underachieving, so why am I even trying to achieve, right? I think it's a cop-out to look around you and see failing relationships and think that your relationship is automatically going to fail. The truth is you don't know anything until you try.
Or they tried and they're like, all right, let me just focus on myself. And look at the evolution of a woman, right? Mm-hmm. We don't really need to be in a companionship. If we could get it for ourselves, we're going to get it for ourselves. And if a man can't understand that or just want to be willing to be around you and not think, oh, she just needs me because she needs a companion, then what's the point?
I always laugh at that because women are the only, between men and women are the only ones that say they don't need no man. You'll never see a man say he doesn't need a woman, right? No matter how what you think about women, even because a lot of men, they see women as, disposable, as for one use. But you'll never hear them say, I don't need a woman.
And I think that goes to, they think we're disposable. So why am I
not all of them? I'm just saying, I'm just speaking to...
Yeah, certain men.
Right.
Certain men. And I guess when you think about certain men, you don't know how other people will formulate that information. They probably like, oh, this guy, he thinks I'm disposable. Forget all men. Mm-hmm. So... Right. And
that's a crazy way to think. I don't like to paint with a broad brush. I don't want to say one person is a representation of the entire race or the entire species in general. That's a bad way to look at life because there's plenty of bad examples of things in the world. To look at one person like that fool that was in Colorado that set people on fire. So I'm going to look at that and say all Egyptian men are freaking pyromaniacs that want to burn people alive.
Like I said, Some people do. Some people have that warped view of thinking. Yeah,
that it is warped. And I think a lot of that, like what you said 55% of Gen Z women don't want to get married. And I think it's because of the state
the evolution of a woman.
I think it's the evolution of the woman and the stagnation of men, right? Mm-hmm. Because men's place in society hasn't really changed. It's women's place in society is changing. They're stepping up in society where men are kind of stagnating, right? So you'll have a lot of men who feel threatened by the educated woman who's making, six figures and you're making, the $40,000-$50,000 a year.
They also, right? I read in the article, they also like the freeness that they get without being... because they didn't really specify if this was like a single woman or a woman that's married, but they also like their freeness. They like to get up and go whenever they please. They don't have to run things by certain people. I think that also goes into play as to why they don't want to get married.
Yeah, but do you think that's the natural state of do you think that's... Because I feel like in relationships, you don't have that freedom to come and go as you please, right? But
especially if there's children involved, you can't maneuver the way you want to.
Yeah, nothing worth doing is easy, number one. And there's always a give and take in anything that you do, right? So if I get in a relationship, I can't come and go as I please, right? Without running it by someone, because just respect, right? But I get someone who I know has my back 100%, my number one supporter, someone that I can, be my complete self with. I don't care what any of these dudes say. Anytime a dude has a woman who he's serious about, he's sharing things with her he shared with no one else. No matter your best friend for 20 years doesn't know what your woman for 2 years knows, right? So there's a benefit that's incalculable when it comes to being in a relationship and having your someone, right? It's nice to be free and all that stuff, and it's nice to do whatever you want. But I'm from the school of thought that eventually, I feel human beings crave companionship, and you kind of lean towards that as you get older. That's not a universal rule, because there are some people who are perpetually single and die single, and that's the way that they wanted it. But I think overall, on average, human beings crave companionship.
Well, it
What
looks
would
like
you
a lot
say?
of. I go back and forth with what I want all the time. My friends know. For a while, I was like, I don't want to get married. What's the point? Blah 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 blah. Contractual agreements. When am I just getting married to get divorced? But now I've opened my mind since I've gotten older. I'm like, all right, I don't mind getting married. I had a thing that I did not want to live with a spouse. Like if I were to get married, I would have to have my own living arrangements, and they have their own living arrangements.
You heard that, Paul Pierce?
So, and I kind of to this day feel the same way, but I wouldn't mind getting married if the person I'm getting married to understands that that's how I want to live my life.
So you want to live your life separate, together but separate?
Yes. And other marriages work out that way as well.
What about what about you live together but you got bunk beds?
No, I don't want to bunk.
Like
or we live together and you live, well, you have your own separate room and I have my own separate room. Like that could work, but I like my space. I'm a person that loves space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a unique take. I never quite heard that before. Yeah. But everybody, to each their own. There's no wrong way to go about things. Me personally,
you love companionship.
Yeah,
so.
I do. I need my woman right up under me. I lean on my wife a lot. She leans on me, of course, but like I said, I'm able to open up and share things with her that I can't share with anybody else. I'm able to be my complete self around her without feeling embarrassed and things of that nature. And you can't put a price on that type of feeling. And I just like being in a dwelling with my wife and my kids and all that stuff to hear the noise and the energy of the house.
You're like a traditional man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very traditional.
Obviously, I'm not so traditional. I don't know where I come from. But yeah, everybody to each their own, right?
Well, you come from a stable family unit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
You've grown up, mom and dad in the house the whole time.
The whole time. And it's not like it was a bad childhood. I'm not putting out there that I had a horrible childhood. My childhood was pretty great. It's just my personal wants and desires. That's what I want. I just want separate living arrangements. Not like I'm doing anything while you're out in your house. I just like my own space.
Sound like Will Smith and Jada talk about, we got this big ass house. I'll be on that side of the house. Yeah. You be on that side of the house.
You be on the west wing. I'll be on the east wing, and we good. We come together whenever we come together. I used to say I would like to see my partner 4 days out the week, but I upped it to 5.
It's crazy. It's crazy, y'all.
People gonna kill me. Like, what the hell is wrong with her?
Hey, we want what we want, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I was recently looking at a Noah Lyles interview, and I think we had talked about it. Like you saw it around the same time I did, and he was upset that he does not have a signature shoe yet. But people like Anthony Edwards, who hasn't won anything, has their own signature shoe. Mm-hmm. My opinion, I don't think he's ready for that yet. He's only won 1 gold in the Olympics, just 1. And I feel like he, for some reason, he's not likable.
He's cocky.
He's not likable. You have to be likable.
People like confidence.
Yeah, you have to be likable in order for your shoe to sell. If people see a Noah Lyles shoe, it might look good, but they're thinking about the person that's behind it. And if they're not really feeling you, they're not buying your shoe. Mm-hmm. So I think he has a lot of work to do in terms of like connecting with the American people. Maybe when the next Olympics comes around, he'll be, more likable, and people would, all right, maybe he does deserve a signature shoe. Maybe he could get another silver or another gold to add on top of that. But at this point in time, I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Yeah, I don't even understand why he would think he would deserve a signature shoe over Ant. Ant Edwards' public profile is just way bigger than him. He's way more exposed than than Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles, you only really talk about him outside of this ridiculous notion that he feels that he deserves a freaking signature shoe. You only really talk about him during the Olympics every 4 years. And how many Olympics is he going to compete in? Maybe like 3, 4 before we don't hear his name ever again.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of American athletes that were great in track and field, have won gold, won silver. Mm-hmm. And a part of those, like, I guess you could say 12 years, because, you know, the Olympics comes around every 4 years. Their name is out there, but as soon as they retire, it's like, who?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because track and field is not something that's aired
all the time.
It's not aired all the time, and it's rarely aired on like the major networks, right? So, you know, you hear about the Diamond League and all that stuff, but no, they don't really get that those kind of eyeballs that the NBA does or the NFL does. He's just not that popular of an athlete to warrant a signature shoe. He had U.S. He had people in the U.S. rooting against him. Yeah. He was so annoying. He was like, we like confidence, but we don't like cockiness.
He oversaturated it.
Yeah, he did too much, and then to not deliver and to win silver, that left a even worse impression. Come the end of the last Olympics.
I think what makes him a little bit more likable now is that he's getting married to that Jamaican track and field star. They like that story, even though they had their drama when it was the Olympics time with her giving away certain secrets about the American team because of what Noah was telling her. No, it's the other way around. Her giving away secrets to the American team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Quote unquote. This is all alleged. We don't know if it's actual. And she was being shunned from the Jamaican team because of the information that she was allegedly telling the Americans.
Why would she do that stupid shit?
She thought it was going to stay with Noah.
Yeah, no.
But Noah looked like the type of...
Noah looked like he'll say everything. Don't do a crime with him because he'll snitch your ass out.
He's like, she did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him at the Met Gala
he was there?
the other night, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is he doing there? Right. I was like, I might as well have been in the Met Gala if he's there.
Sha'Carri.
Yeah, Sha'Carri was there, but Sha'Carri is more popular.
I don't know if she was there, but I think she would be better to be
there. She's more popular.
Yeah.
She has more of a claim to a signature shoe than he does.
And Simone.
You know,
Simone is in gymnastics.
Yeah, definitely Simone.
Yeah.
You know, she's like America's sweetheart.
Yeah.
And she has the hardware to justify that.
I think she's the most decorated Olympian of all time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was Michael Phelps, and I think she passed him up.
Passed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have signature shoes, so I don't know why he think he needs a signature shoe.
Do you think sneaker brands should be more open to giving Olympians sneaker shoes or sneaker contracts?
It depends on the Olympian. It all depends on.
Look how great Michael Phelps was.
Right,
but wait, I think
you don't think about Michael
had a deal with Puma. I think.
Yeah, but Puma, because he's huge in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? He's huge overseas, and he was just dominant. You know what I'm saying? He was like Floyd Mayweather. When he laced up his shoes to race, everybody paid attention.
Listen,
right?
Flatbush Avenue, when he was running in those Olympics, I think it was Beijing to be specific. Everybody, you know how they sell this stuff on the streets? Everything was Usain Bolt. You got the Jamaican flag. Usain Bolt is on over the flag. It was madness back in 2000. I'll never forget. I'm like, oh my God. Let me tell you, Flatbush, when the Olympics was going on, was craziness.
Let me just say, I'm happy that he retired, because I was so sick.
Nah, I love me some Usain.
I was so sick of y'all Jamaicans. Jamaica? Like, I was so sick. I'm like, that's your one claim to fame is track and field. Your one claim to fame, sports wise. Y'all make good music, but yo.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. The females.
Look at Shelly Ann Fraser Price.
Yeah, but Sha'Carri could have smoked y'all, but her mind wasn't where it was supposed to be. Watch the next Olympics. I think we got y'all.
Nah, Jamaican females run it. Don't do that.
Track and field. Well, Shelly Ann Fraser is my personal favorite, but she can't run forever.
She might be retiring.
She's done. She's not gonna make it to the next Olympics.
But the next crop of girls, they're great too.
Yeah,
and watch out for that girl from St. Lucia. I forget her name, but
yeah,
she's
the one that
too.
won the 100 meters.
She was like the dark horse. Nobody saw her coming.
I was just happy that it wasn't Jamaica up there with gold. I'm sick of it.
You're a hater.
I'm sick of it. Sick of it.
Yeah, Julian Alfred from St. Vincent. She's a good one. St. Lucia. She's a good one. She's a good one.
Yep, and not Jamaican. I'll be rooting for her,
that
too.
guy who came in, I think, second, I forget his name, too. He was on the Jamaican team.
Yeah, second place.
He's good.
Who came in first? Who came in first?
I think it was Noah that came in first by like a toenail.
Yeah, it don't matter. USA, baby. I'm taking that. We taking that. It's a new day. It was a new day that day.
He's just a hater.
It's a new day.
Guyana ain't up in nowhere.
It's all right. I'm Guyanese and American. So if Guyana do something, I'm over there. But right now, America is running it in track and field, and I'm taking it.
No,
at least on the
no,
men's
you're
side.
not.
On the men's side, we are.
Nah.
On the women's side, y'all still got some juice. But Sha'Carri Richardson is coming. I think she's
yeah, I like Sha'Carri.
With age, she's getting a little bit more mature.
Everything else is Jamaica.
And I think she's gonna be.
Everything else is Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get it twisted.
Yeah,
that was crazy what you said though.
Yeah, your track and field and your bobsled. I don't know what else you got. What else y'all play? Netball? Yeah, netball. Yeah, y'all know about. Y'all know
I
what?
don't even know if that's in the Olympics.
Y'all know what netball is? It isn't in the Olympics, I think. Yeah. It's basketball where you can't dribble and it ain't got no backboard. Don't ask me how it makes sense, but
anyway,
that's what they got.
Sticking on the Caribbean theme is Caribbean Heritage Month.
It's Caribbean Heritage Month? I thought it was Pride Month.
It's a lot of months.
Oh, damn. So y'all sharing Pride Month with... Oof. Okay. Y'all getting overshadowed.
It is what it... Not in Brooklyn.
I mean, you mean not in Little Caribbean.
Not in Brooklyn.
Not in Church Avenue.
There's Caribbean people all over the place, in all boroughs.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to put that out there that, Happy Caribbean Heritage Month. I believe the Caribbean community, specifically in Brooklyn, does wonders. Mm-hmm. A lot of immigrants from all over the Caribbean come here to live, and it makes it such a vibrant place. We come, we fet, we party, we do all this stuff, and it just makes Brooklyn a great place to live. And also the other boroughs as well, but specifically here.
Specifically Brooklyn, yeah.
I can attest to it because I live in the middle of all the madness. I
can't attest to nothing in the Bronx, but I can attest to Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan.
Yeah, parts of Manhattan. They're everywhere. So big ups to all the Caribbean people that live in this country because they're not just in New York. They're in other cities as well. So... yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. And you had mentioned that you saw a clip about LeVar Ball talking about the part of that fatherhood plays in the Black family.
Well, not so much the part that fatherhood plays in the Black family, but he was basically saying that the Black community only allows for the elevation of one person at a time. And he was comparing that to white financial success in terms of how they keep things in the family. He said like the Hunts own Heinz ketchup and things of that nature. So he was saying like the Balls together could be billionaires, right? So he was basically trying to say that Black people need to try to work together within their families to create something big and great, and not just try to stand out alone on their own, right? But he was saying like, when Black people think about success, you think Michael Jordan, 101, Mike Tyson, 101. He said when the guy gets successful, he makes it out the hood. You remember that one guy. It's not like a family that's elevated, right? Mm-hmm. So he was speaking to that. He was speaking to how we need to really...
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you feel like when one person makes it out, they don't carry the rest of the family with them?
I think that might...
You could have a millionaire cousin, and you have a relative or somebody that's an immediate, person in your family still living in I don't want to say the projects, but living in a low income area and things of that nature. Why do you think that is?
I think in the Black...
Do you think it's selfishness?
I think in the Black community specifically, it is kind of like selfishness to a degree.
Like if I could do it, then get up and you do it.
Right. Why should I do for you? I laid the blueprint, just follow it, kind of deal, right? But you'll see like athletes when they get drafted to the NBA, they'll support the family and take their family with them. But that's not the kind of support that LeVar Ball is talking about. He's talking about growing together as a family and building generational wealth as a family. So say you create a business and you have like your brother in it, your mother's in it, your cousins are in it and stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I think
sometimes they don't bring all those people with them.
I think it goes back to like slavery times too, with the way that they pitted us against each other. With the house slave and the field slave, right?
Yeah.
And there's not enough said about what's passed on to us in our genes. They say trauma is passed on in your genes. So all of that stuff still plays a role in us today. And we're so afraid to lose what little we get that we don't want to take other people with us. Mm-hmm. We're too busy guarding it for ourselves. Right? So, LeVar Ball is right. I just feel that the messenger, I question the messenger because he strikes me as someone who's always looking for a get rich quick scheme instead of really assessing the landscape and trying to see where his family fits in, what they're really good at, and try to monetize that, right? Like when he went to go.
So you think he forced his kids into basketball?
I don't think he definitely forced them into basketball
because
at a young age.
Actually good at it,
right? Yeah.
So it's not like
they became like remember Ichiro? He was the Japanese player for the Yankees. Remember him? He hated his father because his father forced him to play baseball and was very rough on him, right? But he turned out to be one of the greatest baseball players ever. I
think he was
right?
a pitcher.
Right. No, Ichiro, I'm not sure what he was, but he was. I know he was a great player. So there's not much to be said about they were good at it because if I do something from a young age and I stay with it, I'm probably gonna get pretty good at it, right? But I think when his sons started showing NBA aspirations and it started to become a real, I think he was a shortstop, and it started to become a real possibility that they could go to the NBA, then he started to formulate plans on how he could monetize that. And when he came out with the big baller brand and the shoes,
outfielder.
Right, and he didn't realize he was an outfielder, Ichiro, and he didn't realize just how much money goes into creating a basketball shoe. That Nike spends millions of dollars a year in R&D to create these shoes, right? He just thought, I attach my name to it, I attach my boys to the sneaker and it'll sell. And then years later, Lonzo he's attributing his knee injuries to those sneakers. Right. So, instead of trying to get rich quick, really think the stuff out. So I feel that I don't want to read too much into the motivations behind what he was saying in the meeting because the message is sound, right? So I agree with the message, right? I just feel that the way he tried to implement it wasn't sound, right? I really don't think he put too much time and effort into thinking about how he could create a family business that could stand the test of time.
I get what you're saying. I feel like everybody understands where he's coming from. So at this point, I really can't even look at the messenger because he was just trying to do what he was trying to do for his family. So it's not so much the messenger for me, but it was the message that was behind it. And at least you could give him props for trying to execute.
Yeah, I mean, he get an A for effort, right?
And he did, not an A for effort, but actually like a B+ for execution because everybody knows who the Ball brothers are. We know about his shoe. At least you can't say he didn't try.
Yeah, he tried.
He's a walking testament to what he's saying. It might not have executed it. He might not have executed it the way he wanted to, but at least it was done.
Well, I feel that.
And a lot of people can learn from that and try to transform what he did into their own so they could be more successful. Well,
you see a lot of athletes now, like Lamar Jackson, right? His mother is his agent, right? So, you see athletes now trying to keep it all in the family. But you have to, and also Jaden Daniels. His mother is his agent and manager and all that stuff, right? But that's another story. His mom's crazy. His mom is out there.
She's just looking out for the betterment of her son. That's all I gotta say.
I think she protected her investment, but
Her child is her investment. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you start seeing when you start seeing the thing is, you teach your child lessons, and then you have to let them live their life and apply those lessons.
He's still young.
He's in his 20s. He's not a baby.
He's not a baby, but he's still young.
He's not a baby. Would you deal with a man?
He was a rookie.
Would you deal with a man whose mother was overbearing like that?
No, I wouldn't. But I understand where she's coming from.
Because you're a mother.
Yes.
Right, but would you be overbearing like that, sitting in between potential love interests and all that stuff? I wouldn't
be overbearing like that, but I do understand where she's coming from. And everybody's parenting skills is not going to be your parenting skills.
Correct.
And I don't need to worry about Jaden Daniels. He's like 12 years younger than me. What the hell I'm worrying about Jaden Daniels for?
Wait, I'm not saying to worry about him.
I'm just talking in general. Right. I'm just talking in general.
I think that his mom is trying to protect an investment, right? He literally is her cash cow because
certain boy moms, not all, because I'm not crazy. Like, well.
You wouldn't even know. You need to be analyzed from the outside. Of course, you're gonna say I'm not crazy. She went on the Pivot podcast and was like, "I'm not crazy," and it's been blown out of proportion. And of course, my son can do this and that, right? He doesn't have to run everything past me, right? But the public perception is not that, and what we've witnessed so far has not
Somebody
been that.
needs to talk to Jaden Daniels about how he feels about his mother.
I'm pretty sure he would not give us any sound bites. He would say, my mother's my mother and I respect her very much, and she's just looking out for me. And
Somebody's gonna pry and dig.
Ain't nobody gonna pry and dig. Trust me.
We need Wendy.
Hell
we need Wendy Williams back.
Nah, is she still in her conservatorship?
No, I don't think so. Is she still in her conservatorship?
We haven't heard anything for a while.
Oh.
She is.
She is though?
Yeah, but we haven't heard any updates in about 2 months.
Okay. Yeah. So you still
she need to stay right where she at. Stay out of people. Stay out of people's business. Let her. You know what? God be with Wendy Williams.
Wendy is another one that tried to tell people about Puff Daddy, and nobody believed her. Since the 90s, she been telling people about Puff and his parties.
Yeah, she was partaking in the coke.
She was not with him though. She might have been doing that on her own time, but not with him.
She left the parties right when the freak offs were starting.
Exactly, that's when you're supposed to leave the parties.
She took the baggie of cocaine and left. She's like, y'all just gonna leave this hanging around? Like, y'all don't need this.
We have a big Wendy fan in the room. Chill out.
we need to put Kanye in the conservatorship.
Kanye needs to be in the conservatorship.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's going crazy. My man talking about Hail Hitler in his songs and whatnot.
Yes.
I was just
talking about people's children.
I was just having a conversation with my friend not too long ago. About, well, actually, not my friend. I was having a conversation with my sister, and we were talking about freedom of speech, and his song came up, and I was like, freedom of speech, and she was saying freedom of speech doesn't exist, and I was like, it does exist, but it exists. It has its
limitations.
It exists with consequence, right? So you can say what you want, but if you are operating in an industry that is run by a certain particular set of people, predominantly, and then you're gonna say what you say in your song, you think you're gonna be profitable?
This is what I was saying. It takes me back to one of our previous episodes when you were saying how colleges should be doing background checks on their students, and what they put out there, should it be ingested in a way for them not to get into a certain college. It kind of like goes back to that. And I feel that's where the limitations lie. Like, I can't talk about this because it'll stop me from getting this.
Yeah.
The consequences.
Yeah, because you got to understand there's freedom of speech, but then you have people who own their own businesses and have the right to protect them. You can't have any and everybody saying whatever they want with your company logo emblazoned on their chest, right? We live in a world where I could say something about my employer, and then my employer catches flack because it's perceived that my beliefs are their beliefs, right? So people have to understand that. You're always representing somebody. When you're young, you're representing your parents, right?
Well, who do you think Kanye is representing? He's representing nobody but himself.
Well, Kanye is representing himself at this point because literally everybody's kind of like backed away from him.
Yeah, even his family.
But he's a representation of his family as well.
Well, I don't think he's a representation of Kim.
No,
his family
Kim,
is.
Would you consider Kim his family? They're not. They're not
that's
married.
the mother of his children,
right? But they're not. They're not anything to each other outside of like co-parents.
So you think the blowback is going to end up on his children then?
Yes. People hold things.
So.
People. You
If the
ever
children
heard the
say
saying?
you can't hold them accountable.
Right. You shouldn't, but people do.
And I don't think that's right.
Right.
If the children didn't say anything about what he's talking about, and if they don't have the same beliefs as him, you shouldn't hold them accountable for what he says. Yeah, he's the dad, but he's his own entity. He's his own person. Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't be getting any repercussions because of him.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
But that's just not the way the world works. And he has a responsibility as a father to protect his children by not going out there and being crazy. But clearly he's not in his right mind. And I wish that people would treat it as such. Like people are treating him like he's a normal person walking around just saying crazy stuff. He's not. He should be on some sort of medication. He needs to be in some sort of therapy. He should not be taken seriously. But people are taking him seriously, and I think mostly people are taking him seriously because, we live now in an oversaturated content creation era. So when you have someone like a Kanye West walking around talking crazy, it makes for good content.
And the people around him need to rein him in.
Who's around him besides that
Somebody's
woman?
Around
besides
him.
That woman that walk around half naked.
Somebody's around him. He has a team. Every celebrity has a team.
Yeah, but he pays that team. Right?
And somebody on that team needs to earn their money and rein him in and be like, oh, you can't be doing this.
They probably seen people get fired already for trying to rein him in.
Well, that's a job that you should risk, because if you care about a betterment of a person, you would try to do your best to stop them from hurting themselves.
He should have hired Capricorn Clark. She was a self-proclaimed Diddy protector, right?
Obviously not the protection that he needed.
Yeah, Diddy something else.
Wasn't the protection that he needed, because he was still out there doing his stuff.
He needed protection from himself.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. His baser impulses.
I guess when you become so big in stature and in celebrity, you feel like you're invincible and nobody could tell you no. And it happens because nobody told him no.
Well, did you see that episode of Drink Champs with Will Smith?
No.
He was on there not too long ago. I think it was like last month or something like that. And he was talking about how people try to, he said people don't, you hear that saying all the time that people only change when they hit rock bottom. Mm-hmm. But he said there's an inverse to that situation. It's called cliff top. Mm-hmm. And he was like, once you reach the cliff top and you've like been so successful.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you reach the cliff top and you've been so successful, so you reach the end of sex, you reach the end of material needs and all that stuff, right? And it's like there's nothing there. You're not getting any more incremental happiness anymore, mm-hmm. right? And then you just fall off that cliff, mm-hmm. right? So he's basically saying, you can either hit rock bottom or you could be so successful that you end up falling off the cliff and having the same type of result. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happened to Diddy. I think he reached the top. And he got to the end of everything. He got to the end of money. He got to the end of sex and all of that stuff. And nothing was exciting him no more. Nothing was really engaging him.
It's interesting because I think Bow Wow had said something similar to that. Like he felt like he reached his peak and nothing was exciting for him anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people who feel that way. Mm-hmm. But he didn't go out and, we don't know what he does on his own time, but he ain't doing what Diddy doing.
Yeah, Diddy crazy. Rubbing cum on his nipples and stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is insane.
and the crazy thing about it is that his kids are in attendance in these freaking trials. His mother was there.
Yeah, hearing all this stuff.
So they're hearing all of the wild mm-hmm. stuff you've been getting up to. Mm-hmm. That's like, embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like even if you get acquitted, like what does freaking Thanksgiving dinner look like?
Just looking at his chest like...
Yeah, like give me a hug.
I wonder what was on it the night before. Yeah.
Like, damn, man. I feel bad for his kids because, mm-hmm. They're going to have to deal with that the rest of their life.
Yes.
The rest of their life.
And do you think, like, it
twins,
goes back to what I was saying about Kanye's children? His kids shouldn't suffer the repercussions of the actions of their father.
Like I said, you have every father,
and it doesn't look like they are.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll see. Every father and every mother has a responsibility to their children to protect them.
As far as I see, they're still going about living their lives, and nobody's holding them accountable for the actions of their dad. So, if you think society is that, then
you know what too, because they have two very successful and public parents, and you know that the children are with Kim, and Kim kind of separated herself from Kanye, so that kind of protects them.
That's what, yeah.
But with Diddy, his kids are with him, even though they weren't, because they were with their different mothers and stuff like that. But
and the thing is, I think majority of them are adults too.
Yeah.
Majority of them are
even
adults.
The twins were the youngest ones, right?
No, he had another little girl the other day. I don't know how old she is though. Yeah, she's baby like 2. Yeah, baby love. But
Caribbean heritage.
I don't think Diddy's Caribbean.
I don't know what he is.
Now, why you mention that?
Anyway, you said baby love.
I'm like, what? What does this have to do with anything that we're talking about right now?
Happy Caribbean Heritage Month.
Yes. Happy Caribbean Heritage Month. Happy Pride Month, and whatever month it is for you in the month of June. Happy whatever month.
Happy Pride Month. Juneteenth is coming up.
Yeah. I think it's also Happy Black Music Month. I think it's Black Music Month as well.
So Black Music Month isn't wrapped in Black History Month?
No, it's not. It's its own month. And guess what? We got 30 days.
Shoot, Black Music Month is basically all music anyway, so.
Not really,
we're the root of all music.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
So.
Okay. I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think a lot of gems were talked about here today. So I'm Danielle.
And I'm Noel, the talent.
And that was Random Conversations.